Jason, as usual, has done a fine job throughout the day in serving up some topics that could be some interesting things to dive into. One would be something that was released. What was the publication of the platform that fine article was on about hot seat
It was
coaches
on
in college football?
Well, it was 24/7 Sports posted an article talking about coaches on the hot seat, coaches, who in both Group of Five and Power Five programs who were on the hot seat. And this came out a couple days ago, and one of the names mentioned was the man that Logan is the president of his fan club, Mike Norvell, the head football coach at Florida State University.
I'm a fan club.
You're the president of his fan club. So
not even.
I guess my question, I'll serve it up to both these gentlemen first. Let's start with the man who lettered for Florida State football, James Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Norvell, this is year 3. The numbers are what they are, 8-13 record as a head coach. He's got a top 5 win over North Carolina, has a win over Miami, also has arguably the most embarrassing loss in program history against Jacksonville State. So entering year 3, is Mike Norvell on the hot seat?
No.
All right, why?
He'll get 4.
Not?
He'll get 4 years minimum. Probably 5. Because all right, you asking so James Coleman opinion or James Coleman 5th quarter or Sports Den James? Which one would you like?
We got 40 minutes. We can do both. Let's go for it. I want both.
James Coleman, letterman at Florida State, does not like getting rid of coaches. Does not like having a turnstile of coaches. I believe in giving coaches an opportunity. You get 3 to 4 years so that you can be able to firmly say that these are your guys. I would say 4 because he could argue that last cycle, and this cycle, he couldn't get as many of his high school guys because he needed to go get more portal guys, doing what most politicians do, blaming the last administration as much as feasibly possible. But he has my support. I think he should get that. And I also think Mike's a good dude off the field. Now, James Coleman, Sports Den, sarcastic a-hole that he may be, if I am to believe, I think I've started that off with many times on the Mark Rogers show, everything that has been written from last offseason to during the season from a bunch of people who have covered sports, covered me, for that matter. And I have seen them write about a legend in a manner in which was not admirable or nice when he was on the downturn. I've seen nothing but fluff pieces. I think Mike has been treated unfairly in the media, not the way that other people. I think he's been treated unfairly because there has been no bias, and there has been no measurable metric that somebody can truly look at that matters. Wins and losses. But the fact that how it's been written is that you are blind if you cannot see a noticeable improvement on a team that only won 5 games. So I'm blind as Stevie Wonder. Or I think Stevie Wonder can see, and maybe I'm the only one who can see. Because at the end of the day, you do not have an $18 million buyout. You do not pay a coach $5 million, over $5 million a year in the past. Now Mario's getting what, 9?
8.
And doesn't matter. So I'm saying now but we're paying Mario Cristobal, we're paying new age college coach money for 8 wins. We fired a guy for 8 wins. Now we're bringing a guy in and we're saying it's better when it's not. And what stings worse is that in that second year of tag, he got fired abruptly and they still made a bowl game. And we had an athletic director come out and say 6-6 is not the standard. The expectation is to win championships. And now you got guys on podcasts of a guy who argued with my dear Mark Rogers friend Zach Smith, where you're saying boosters told you it's acceptable to lose because you said we were going to lose. In what freaking world do winners say this? When has it ever been acceptable to lose at Florida State? Because it damn sure wasn't acceptable for the guy who built your program that you unceremoniously wrote hit pieces about and boosted out. ushered him out for a guy named Jimbo Fisher who left you too. That's sports then, James. Fifth quarter, James just says this. At the end of the day, you're judged by wins and losses. You are what you are. You are what your record dictates. So if he does not go to a bowl game with 8 wins next year, he should be fired. But that would say the same thing. That James would say the same thing about a Florida coach, would say the same thing about a Miami coach, would say the same thing about a Georgia coach or anybody else. The standard is winning. You can't change the standard because it fits your narrative. Florida State is a big time job, not because we win. I don't ever, there's not a moment in my existence where we ever won 3 games. There's not a moment in my existence where we ever won 5 games. And the roster is, while it may not be a championship level roster, the roster is not that bad. And if it is that bad, who now can we point to? Who brought these mofos in? It's only one person at this day. You had unlimited cuts because there is no APR. You had unlimited transfer people that don't have to sit out. And you had all the scholarships that you could with an increase in your recruiting budget. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, Mike is, as much as I like Mike, just got to get it done. That's why I always tell people ain't nobody getting fired, because you can't say people need to be fired and at the same time saying you'll be blind if you don't notice that we've gotten better. It's either you got better or you didn't get better. If you didn't get better, make fires. Fire your assistant coaches, do things like that. If you got better, how can you fire anybody if you got better? It's a lot of talking out the ass, but excuse me.
No,
a lot of talking out the bottom.
That one, I think that one's allowed on YouTube.
You're allowed 1 word per show. We allow.
Oh, okay, all right, cool. My bad. My fault. My bad. But that was my opinions on those things. 3 different takes. I'm sure there'll be a message board somewhere.
All right. Logan,
someone will tweet about it.
Someone
will clip it.
Logan, go ahead and defend Mike now. Go ahead.
Go ahead and do my defending. Mike is amazing and should never be fired. There you go. There's my take, Jason. Since Jason said I was number 1 cheerleader, but no.
Legitimately, I noticed over the course of last season you were a little bit more critical when you.
Oh, yeah.
So my question is, like we said,
I mean,
James said his record is what it is. Obviously, there was some improvement last season over the year before, but that being said, it wasn't the Florida State standard. Is he on the hot seat? We're not calling for him to say he should be fired right away, but is he on the hot seat entering the season?
I think entering into the season now. I mean, could it be mid-season on the hot seat when you start off like you did last season? Absolutely. But, I mean, then there's also the thought of, well, if you fire him, where are you going to get the money to go get another coach? I mean, that's what that's what the position Florida State is in. That's what the tough part is. But, my big thing whenever I was critical of him and talking about him was the start of 0-4. You have a really great game against Notre Dame, and then you flop against Jacksonville State. So what I'm thinking is, he's lost the locker room. Something happened. Something's not there. The team is too young or immature. Something's still going on in the locker room where we thought that he was fixing this off during the offseason and got rid of some guys, told some guys to move on to the league, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, well, something isn't working right. I was the complete opposite against Notre Dame. I was tweeting out, I think Florida State has found its coach, bright future ahead, but 0-4. But then after that 0-4, things start turning around and go on a 5-3 run, and compete in some games where you probably shouldn't have really been competing in. I mean, they were doing great against Clemson, who I still think wasn't a great team last year, but was doing the best they could, and then competed down the stretch, at least won one of the rivalry games. Because if that wasn't the case and Florida State continued to just have this awful streak of beating rivals, I mean, it was awful. And I also don't think it was great ending off the season too, losing to Florida with a team that didn't have its head coach there, and also didn't have a fully operating starting quarterback with Emory Jones and all the things that he was giving away to you left and right, and still couldn't take advantage of. And Jordan Travis wasn't fully healthy. So just to say it straight up, I don't think he's on the hot seat heading into this upcoming season now.
I'm going to disagree slightly with you, because I think
I thought you said that before we started going live.
Hold on. I think you can be on the hot seat, but I'm not calling for him to be fired. And Mark and I have talked about this before. Mark and I agree, and James I think agrees with both Mark and I on this one. You should get a minimum of 3 years. That was my problem with Willie Taggart being fired, is that he was not given his 3 years. And I said that no matter what Mike Norvell's record for his first 2 seasons, which, let's be honest, was worse through 21 games than Willie Taggart. That's not saying one coach is better than the other or whatnot. It's just facts. 8 wins or less than 9 wins. That he should still be given a third win this season. That being said, with all the expectations that Florida State had, with all the expectations going into last season about how 2020 was the pandemic year. Let's forget 2020 is the pandemic year. It was a weird year for everything. Let's move on into this new season. And Logan is 100% correct. You come out great against Notre Dame on national TV. Thank you, Beacon Shine. I appreciate it. You come out great against Notre Dame on national TV, and then you lay an egg with the worst loss in program history the following weekend. I feel like he has to be on the hot seat entering this season. That's why I'll say it like this. The most important game for Florida State is that LSU game. And I am thankful to God that we are not opening the season with LSU. Thank you, Beacon Shine. I appreciate it. That is the most important game of the season because our biggest problem last year was starting off the year with Notre Dame and then going to Jacksonville State. I'm not saying we would beat Notre Dame if we had started off the year with Jacksonville State, but who knows? We may have been at least 1-1 and not 0-2 to start the season. Starting off the season with Duquesne, getting what, God, I hope, please don't lose to another FCS team, getting a win in that opening game before you go to LSU on that Sunday night is going to be the most important thing. Because if we can go to New Orleans, get a win against an LSU team that finished 6-7 last year. Yes, Brian Kelly's coming in, but they're going to be it's a new coach, new team, and whatnot for him. If we can go to New Orleans and get a win there, that will go so far into turning things around over the course of the season. I'm not saying we'll win 10 games. I'm not even saying we'll win 9 games. But I think at that point, if you can go 2-0 to start off that season, I think a lot of pressure will get taken off of him. So if you're asking, do I think he's on the hot seat? Yes. Does that mean I think he should be fired? No. There's a big difference between the two, but you cannot say that a coach who is 8-13 in his first 2 seasons is not on the hot seat.
I think that's for us thinking rationally and talking rationally, but nothing about the last 3 coaching searches. The way the last 3 coaches have entered or ended has been rational. It hasn't been. There has been no true agenda and no real purpose behind it, and it's not the fault of Mike Norvell. It's the fault of the only thing that's been consistent since Bowden, and that's the admin, and that's where the most important hire of the last, I'll say even the last decade, has been in the taking of one Mike from Seminole Boosters and placing him as the athletic director. We have a permanent athletic director, which is the only time you should ever fire and hire a coach is when you know you have a president and an athletic director that would at least be able to see those guys through because they have vested interest, and you hire people who have a skill set in doing that. So I do believe that that AD Mike will be able to go out and do whatever is necessary. But I also I believe he's also going to be fiscally responsible because of how Tag was fired. Right, wrong, and different. I agree with Jason, Mark. You don't fire any coach before 3 years, before 3 recruiting classes. Excuse me. Give them 3 recruiting classes. But neither here nor there, it didn't happen. A lot of people in their defense, in the articles that they write, they aren't articles that again, I've always asked, what tangible metric are we rating us getting better on? Defensively, we did jump leaps and bounds. But the only tangible metric that matters is wins and losses. Based upon everything that was written, what Logan just said, what he thought shouldn't have even been a thought. As kumbaya-ish, as this is the closest I've ever been to people, as we're getting coach, as all of these sayings get said, it doesn't translate to the field. And it's not just that. It doesn't translate when the S hits the fan, which is the bigger part of it. Even Notre Dame in the loss, which was I hate good losses, but it was an admirable loss. The team played up. You did not make a key stop. You did not make a key play when it was necessary. Jacksonville State, everybody wants to blame Fuller. I get it. All you got to do is get a pass interference call and the game is over because they're going to have to do another Hail Mary. All you got to do is make a play. There were 3 guys in position to make a tackle. Adversity hit, they folded. All the games. Now, Syracuse, they were able to make it. They were able to pull themselves out of it. But a good team, a team that has character, a team that truly takes and embodies the mentality of a coach, is one that handles adversity a lot better. You can do this, which is why I joke and say they're not doing real mat drills. Real mat drills has made you handle adversity. Like you knew it. When you gotta dive and do agility drills and a teammate's throw up, you're gonna figure out how to get through some stuff. And again, one day I can take some civilians through a mat drill so that you can see what it was really, really like for your favorite team. But I don't think I have the heart to truly take somebody through what those guys put us through. But I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. And number two, what could also make it a lot easier and more digestible for guys like me, because again, I've gotten a chance to know a lot of these coaches off field, talk to them, seen practices, seen stuff like that. Good men. But damn, let my coach die. Let him lie in his grave with his flowers like he's meant to do. You guys, not you guys, but people, you fans compare everything Mike Norvell does to Bobby Bowden except for winning. It is annoying. You are comparing a guy who we want to be good to the all-time winningest coach in NCAA history. That's how we pick on Miami fans. We pick on Florida fans. For 40 years, we picked on Georgia fans for being delusional. That is the epitome of delusion. To compare a guy who ain't even 500 at your school to a guy who is one of the great. Saban's the greatest now. I have to say that. No. But before that, listen, the rings mean something. But before that, he was clearly the greatest coach of all time. Like we have to be able to command more. But that being said, they ain't firing him. They're gonna give him every chance to fail, and I think that's not wrong. But I do think what we need to start doing is looking at what rivals and what the college landscape is actually doing. We do have the money. We better, if we don't, we better have the money because $9 million is the new calling card for a coach in today's game. Unless you want to continue, unless you've made your bet and you're okay with hiring a group of 5 coaches every time they come up. But the reality is, if Mike Norvell's not it, you got to go make a splash hire. You've not only got to do that, you've got to have the money to be able to bring in the staff that is going to take, which is basically the same amount of money as you're going to have to pay your head coach. You're going to have to collectively pay your staff. And you need to invest in the off-field staff, period. You've got to be able to get your recruiting ramped up. You've got to be able to go out here and do simple things like that I've mentioned, that actually some of these things are free, but obviously somebody over there isn't smart enough to realize it, that, pick up the phone, call an alum. Like, one gripe I have, I coached at a school here in Jacksonville called Mandarin High School. There's a couple kids that won at Mandarin High School. Do you know the coach they contact consistently at Mandarin High School is a Hurricane fan? Big time Hurricane fan from Miami. And that's the guy they coach. That's the guy they go see. That's the guy they talk to. Not the alumni. They talk to the guy who has, now he'll put the kid in the best position. But again, and that's not a real, I don't hold that against him. I'll see him when I see him. But at the end of the day, that's not playing smart ball. Who are the kids going to ask about coming to Florida State? The UM guy or the guy who went there? Miami, chock full of FSU alumni, the city. A lot of them play. We got Lake Gibson. No, is it Lake Gibson? Excuse me. No, it's not. There's a coach in Central Florida in Polk County who's got a 5-star running back. Man, that kid would have every drip of Florida State. I'd give him that cool ass sweatshirt that Mike Norvell wears all the time off my back to get him here. It's working smarter, not harder. I like, again, they're doing some good things, but yo, it's gotta. We gotta. I think he needs more support off field, and that's where the admin has to step up. But I don't think he's getting fired.
Mark,
hot seat means you get fired.
Mark,